Hi, it's Dr. Mike Jones, Managing Director of Impact Minerals. And for those of you that don't know us, we're a multi-commodity explorer in Australia. And we've been able to accumulate 4 significant projects that are in very prospective parts of the country, established mining districts or emerging new exploration districts. And what we're about is target generation and drilling those targets to the best of our ability. And we've had an interesting year, or in the middle of a very interesting year, on the journey to test 3 or 4 of those targets we've identified.
Brilliant. Mike, lovely to see you again. I think we saw you last December. Have you been keeping well?
Reasonably, although I must admit, if you see me coughing, I've got some sort of lurgy, which is making me cough. But I have had the COVID test, so I'm pretty safe from that point of view.
Good man. Well, I appreciate you coming back on and talking to us. So you got quite a good feedback from the last interview that we did. It was in a fair amount of detail. So if anyone's interested in the backstory, business plan, strategy of the team, etc., do watch that. We'll put a link below to make sure that you can access that quickly and easily. So what's happened since we last spoke?
So, well, just going back to that interview, Matt, it was probably the best interview I've ever had, and it really made me, think, on my feet about what it is that Impact is and who we are and what we do. So I do thank you for that. So look, we started this year really with a theme of, and I've used the phrase rolling the dice. For 3 or 4 attempts at trying to find a world-class deposit. I mean, that's really what Impact was about, if you recall. Not overly interested in finding a 50,000 ounce a year gold producer and then building it up over 20 years, although that's a very justifiable approach, but it's not what we're about. So, we've identified a number of targets. We've drilled sort of, say, 1.5 of them, and we've got another 1.5 to go between now and the end of the year. So started off, I have to say, with a big bang, lots of promotion. We had some really great targets and our porphyry copper play in the Lachlan Fold Belt, which has been a big centre of activity the last couple of years since the Voda discovery. And then we have been in a bit of a lull the last few months. News flow has been slow. The labs have been late. We've got some results, and now we're going through them. They're not as easy as we were hoping to interpret. And so we've been working on that, and that's all going to be fun. So it's one of those stories of this is life in the trenches, in the junior sector. It's like you can't be in everyone's face all of the time. There are just these periods. And unfortunately, we've been through one. But look, we've got a big end of the year coming up, and we're excited.
Okay, well, answer me this, because you've been at this since 2006. You spent $45 million. The share price is down 50% from when we last spoke.
Yeah.
Are you the guy to be leading this company?
Well, look, I certainly think so. I mean, we are in exploration, and there's I often get people sort of talking about, I'm investing in Impact Minerals. It's not really an investment; it's a speculative investment. You should only be putting money in that you want to lose. This is sometimes I shake my head, honestly, with some of the things that are said, and it's just like, you're going to be broke. It's gambler's ruin. And so this is the game that we play. And so, you can have the best looking targets in the world. You go and drill them, you're all excited. And it's like, here we are again. And there's a number of companies like that out there. And I can name a few, Ozquest, Encounter, all started about the same time. But all of those guys, were all as driven as we were, from day one to still find the big one. And as I said before, if the shareholders or the directors just decide, look, we need a change of direction, then that's great. That's their decision. But so far, we've had nothing but support, and we do get some very good support, not just from the major shareholders, but most of the minor ones. Although I'll be fully the first one to admit there's a lot of frustration out there, especially over the last 4 to 6 weeks.
Well, there is, because I'm not sure everyone understands what it is that you're doing, because market cap 35 million, spent 45 million to date. You've got a whole bunch of assets which you're targeting. You seem to jump around from one to the next. Recently, last time we spoke, you said we were on Broken Hill. In fact, I think now we're going to flip to Commonwealth. And now it seems to be you're flipping back to Broken Hill and Western Australia. So where's the focus?
No, that's a great question. So one of the things that we run, and coming on to mention it before, is really is a target portfolio. So we'll deal with that. Okay. But the first thing is that one of the things that I learned in my career, sort of target generation and working with Western Mining with the small discoveries that I've made in the past, is that you've got to be in the right field and you've got to be in the right area of the country. Now, you can do that two ways. You can either get some ground in an established mining centre and build that up, and that's really the story of the goldfields here in Australia, in Western Australia. These old mining centres, they just keep on giving, and so that's one area to do it. The second one is to be first mover with a completely new idea, like Sirius down in the Albany Fraser, or you're sort of perhaps Johnny come lately in some areas, and you're into an established, there's an emerging province, and you've managed to get ground in that. You might not have been the first mover, and so we've got these four areas. It's really sort of 3.5, but so we're in the Lachlan Fold Belt, home to the big porphyry copper deposits of Australia. We're in Broken Hill, obviously massive silver lead zinc deposit there, but we're looking for nickel copper PGE. And then in Western Australia, then on the back of the Julimar PGE discovery of Chalice Mining, we've picked up some really good ground there, and we've got some news to come from that. And we've actually added to that ground holding. And then we've got this little project, Dunia, that we did a joint venture on, last year. So we kind of got these things. So the way that we've done it is that we've actually ranked all of those, the projects and the targets within them. And so if I was to come to you and say, I'm a gold company, I've got 10 gold targets and they're in these 4 parts of the country, no one would blink an eye, but because we've got this really highly ranked porphyry copper target, and a lesser ranked nickel copper PGE and then a gold target, but all 3 of those rank much better than the silver lead zinc that we could look for at Broken Hill. That's how we do it. And so, yes, people sort of say, we're kind of jumping around, but that's the approach, and so if we look at, let's take Dunia as an example. People sort of say, well, we've been trying to establish a bit of a ground holding back in WA because of COVID. We finished overseas. We only had these projects at Broken Hill and Commonwealth, which have been around for a while. So it sort of injected some new life into what we were doing. And, but Dunia is a walk-up drill target. It's like there's already been work done. It wasn't done properly. We know there's a soil anomaly. There's some few drill holes. The work is done, and you can just go in and drill it. And it ranks very highly because of that. Absolutely, the porphyry copper thing. So when we spoke, we're very active in Broken Hill. And Broken Hill, and I've said this in all my presentations, still the flagship. That's where there's a real chance of finding a big nickel copper PGE. But if you can spend $500,000 and drill something, like Apsley and make a major porphyry copper discovery, which we didn't, but we might be close to one, then my view is that we should do that. And similarly, at Dunia, if we're going to spend about $300,000 to find a good gold deposit.
So let me interrupt here, because I think it's important that I understand the terminology you're using. You're talking, because I understand prospect generators, explorers, developers, producers, right? That's, everyone understands that, right? I'm trying to make it inclusive for everyone looking at this. What is a target portfolio company? What does that mean? I understand you've got lots of different targets. It's a portfolio of assets, but what does that actually mean in terms of the way that you go about creating, value? Because, like I say, you spent 45 million, you have 35 million market cap today. It says the dollar for dollar return is just not there using this model. So what is it?
So it's we've ranked. I mean, where can we start? We'll take a step back. So one of the things is that we have struggled over the years to get a joint venture partner into these projects. Okay, so we've had like Broken Hill and Commonwealth for sort of 10 years, but 6 years of that, with a downturn, when nobody was doing anything, and so we fought hard to keep that ground, and so we had to spend money on it. We've got to spend money on it and keep it going and doing all these sort of things. And then, and every now and again, a really good sort of target, comes out. And, but there's still a thing to where the focus is. And the focus has been on the precious metals. I mean, we've got, copper gold, we've got the PGM gold at Broken Hill, there's gold at Dunia, and there's nickel copper PGE at Arkham. So we've always been very focused on the core precious metals and the core base metals, nickel, copper, and maybe a bit of lead and zinc, but it's those. We haven't gone to the battery space. Maybe we should have done. We might have been a lot more successful. But we can have a separate discussion on those bulk commodities later. But so we've got the same. We are in those core commodities. So but because the mineralization style is different, it's like that's where the confusing thing I think is for people. They're looking for porphyry copper, they're looking for PG. But what we're looking for really is precious metals and nickel and copper. So those are the five, gold, silver, PGMs, nickel and copper. Those are the 5 or 6 things that we're looking for.
Well, those are certainly the buzzwords that people want to hear about. But they also want to hear that you've made a discovery, right? So let's talk about Commonwealth. What's happened there? Because some drilling happened, waiting for assays, and what did you find? What do you now know? Why have you decided to not do much there, and moved over to back over to Broken Hill? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah. So we finished the last year, at Broken Hill. We've done one of the biggest programs we've ever done, 10,000 meters, and there were lots of breakthroughs there. I mean, we've really kind of broken the back of that project in terms of understanding, where the PGEs might be and how to explore for them. And we've done some clever technical work there. So the idea is to keep drilling. So it's like we're not ready to go back to Broken Hill and drill. And so we had this great target at Apsley, and for porphyry copper, had all the hallmarks of a great target. So there's some really nice geophysics. We had some great geochemistry over the top. The patterns looked great. I mean, they were good targets, and and we told the story. People liked the look of them. I had some porphyry copper experts calling me out of the blue, saying this looks really interesting, and it was like, okay, this is a great target. This is the sort of thing that Impact came to do. We could have sort of gone around and tried to farm it out, but by the time I farmed it out, I spent another 3 months. I've got to take people in the field. I've spent 3 months of admin overhead, and at 200 grand a month, and it's just like, no, let's just go and drill it. That's what we came to do, and that's the first time we've done any drilling at Commonwealth for 5 or 6 years, because overall it's not ranked that highly, in our portfolio. So we've just been sort of managing that. We've done a deal on it. We've on parts of it. We've sold some of the tenements. We're sort of just trying to pare it back and manage that. With the aim then, okay, so after that, we're back to Broken Hill, drilling there, and then we're drilling Dunia. So the idea is to just, the target portfolio, if you like, is, moving our way through, to keep drilling for as long as we, and as often as we possibly can. So in terms of Apsley, so we started off drilling, and it was like the geophysics wasn't what we were expecting. There's some hidden shaly units with sulfide in them, and that was giving us strong responses. There are low levels of all the right metals and minerals that we need, okay, but they're very low. So it's like we are quite a long way from the target area, and that's what we've been struggling with just the last sort of 10 days with the results before coming out with them, which we will in the next couple of days.
What does that mean? You're struggling with it, and it's low grade, and it's not what you thought it was going to be. I mean, do you say there is no value there, or it's not for us to spend the money to try and unlock the value there, or there's not enough data to work out one way or the other what is there? Let's move back to Broken Hill. Let's go back to Dunia, and we'll just park that up. I mean, what have you been struggling with for the last 10 days?
No, sure. So, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, in terms of we're going to park Apsley. Okay, but we don't. It's a job that's not finished, and it doesn't cost much extra based on all the money we spent on the drilling. To just do that little bit extra, which will then actually dress it up, for want of a better word, to then say to someone, oh look, there's a deep target here, come and
So why not do it now? I mean, how much money are we talking about? Why not do it now? If it's not very expensive. Why don't you spend the money to do that?
The extra work we're doing is the interpretation work. That's what we're doing at the moment. Okay, so not extra drilling or anything like that, because we think that there might be some very deep drill holes required. So, as it turns out, after the initial enthusiasm for porphyry copper work, following the Boda discovery, it was like a rejuvenation of the whole lot of fold belt, and we all got excited, and that's how we found Apsley. On the back of Boda, because we've got ground adjacent to it, and found all these anomalies. It looks great. This is fantastic. This is now lifting up the whole prospectivity of the entire project because of the Boda discovery. Now, since Boda was discovered, they've probably only had 4 decent drill holes, to be honest, and they've been drilling 1,000 meter drill holes And that's not for a company the size of Impact. But we were hoping for a quick win based on the geometry and the scale and the size and all of the patterns that were there. It was almost textbook, and we still think it is possibly textbook. But there's a particular nuance in there which I won't go into great detail about. But the models that are used for porphyry copper that are mostly out there in the literature and in all the announcements that you read have a particular model for the way the minerals and the alteration works around them. Okay, but those models are basically built on North American style and chemistry porphyry copper deposits. And so Ridgeway, which is the one that we all talk about, and all of it, there's ourselves, Sultan Resources, Magmatic Resources, Kincora, they've all got these sort of low-grade alteration halos, and we don't really know where to go. And I think I know why that is that because when you look at the work on Ridgeway, which is owned by Newcrest have sat on that for 40 years, what the secrets are to the zonation around Ridgeway, because it is actually fairly unique. And so by hook or by crook, we found a few little sniffs and a few little clues from people that have worked there and stuff that might be the right, we might be in the right ballpark, but it's not as easy and as obvious as the standard model. And so what we've seen, and we've worked a little bit recently with Codes in Tasmania, the university down there, and some other specialists, and it's like, right, okay, there is still the potential there, but it's not going to be easy. So what we've been doing, and very close to finishing, is like, right, there is a vector here. It's not very strong, but this is where we think it is. Because we have generated a very large halo of 200 ppm copper, which sounds ridiculously low. But when you see our announcement, but like if you look at around Ridgeway, at 200 ppm copper, which is nothing, really, you can be 200 meters from the ore deposit. So it's like, we've got widely spaced drill holes, So in a way, it was kind of like the worst possible outcome. It was like the best looking, I'll admit it, it's the best looking targets I've ever drilled, and one of the worst set of absolute, results that we've ever had. So it was pretty devastating, talking about life in the trenches. And it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. But it's like, okay, there's a few sniffs here for an extra, few tens of thousands. We can dress it up, and then we've done the job, and then we can park it and and move on.
Dress it up and park it. Do you mean dress it up and try and get someone to come in and spend the money?
Yeah, no, that's what. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, somebody who says, oh, actually, these guys haven't done too bad a job. They know what they're doing. Let's go and pump a few deep drill holes in it.
Okay, you need someone with a decent balance sheet who thinks, actually, we think we can unlock this porphyry. Porphyry is a very emotive word. People get excited because it suggests scale, etc. But it also it indicates that there's going to need a lot of money spent on it. So you're going to go about the process of trying to find some suitors or some JV partners who can do that. What leads you to believe that you're going to be able to do that?
That's another excellent question, because in terms of big porphyry exploration, there's not a lot of companies that can actually afford to do that. So the number of people that you're interested in, that are actually interested in coming to have a look is actually quite small. So you need a discovery like Boda to then get people interested, and then in the hope then that you're going to start to look for them. But we all know that the majors are out there, looking for the next big copper thing. We've had a knock on the door on one of our precious metal projects from a very large mining company, and a mid-tier, and we've been in discussions, etc. And they're out there. They're desperate, and they're also desperate for projects in Australia, and in the same way that we run a target portfolio, they run a country portfolio. We're looking for copper in Chile and North America, and they rank them all in the countries, and then pick out the best ones that are going to fit them. Okay,
so Commonwealth, you're going to work on trying to bring someone in. Broken. Can I ask you, what's the cash position actually at the moment? How are you?
Yeah, 2.9.
2.9. How much of that is going to go on Broken Hill?
So we've got about $500,000 for drilling there, and another 300,000 for drilling at Dunia. Yeah.
Right. So what happens at both of those projects once you spent that money? Are you then going to try and bring other people in? How does the target portfolio work?
No, sure. Okay. If if we don't find the win, or we don't think that it's worth going back, then we park that project. We've done the job. It's been downgraded. Okay, there might still be some residual thing. Move on to the next one. Because again, gambler's ruin, which is a mathematical formula. It's like you can keep spending money on a project, but at some point you have to say, no more. I can't do any more. I need to move on. And the quicker you make that decision, the better. And people could probably say to us, well, look, why didn't could probably have dropped the whole Commonwealth project, 4 or 5 years ago, and not worry about it. Holding costs are relatively cheap in New South Wales, but then all of a sudden there was value there, when the Boda discovery, because our modus operandi is to get these large ground holdings in respective parts of the country, and so if you can stay in there long enough, and you have enough money, or you find the right partner, you've increased your chances of finding, the next major deposit quite significantly.
Okay, but just specifically on the question I asked, which was, okay, 500,000 Broken Hill and 300,000 at Dunia. Yeah. What happens then? Are you going to then speak to potential partners, JV partners, otherwise, however you want to construct it, and bring them in and then move on to the rest of your portfolio? Is it more like a prospect generator model? Because it's not a phrase I've heard before, target portfolio company. So is that how it works?
That's sort of, yeah, and because we're here for the big win, as I keep saying, it's like, I'd rather try and, get a quick win, for want of a better word, by drilling the first thing. And if it then grows bigger and whatever, then you can go from that. But Dunia is a very specific, walk-up drill target. Looks great. It's not far from the recent Burns discovery. Looks very good. It's like, this is a simple test. It's not difficult to go and do. Now, Broken Hill is still the flagship project. Okay, and most of our time and effort and money is going into that. We ran through last time, people have seen the other presentations. PGE exploration is difficult because if you're looking for massive sulfides, great, you can perhaps do an EM survey and things like that. But with PGEs, they don't respond to any geophysical technique, and so you really have to understand the chemistry of the systems to be able to track them, along trend. And we've got our secret ratio that we've come up with that's actually giving us an indication of grade. I don't think anyone else certainly nobody's talking about it. And so we've got a mechanism to explore for the PGEs using a handheld XRF instrument geochemically, and that is such a breakthrough in terms of being able to speed up our exploration. It's really quite significant. So it's a new area. It's never been drilled before. Certainly never been understood to the level that we have. But we think there's a real chance of finding a big world-class deposit. But I think it's worth another round of drilling, to see if we can nail that for the shareholders that have been with us all the time, to give us the 10 bagger we're all looking for, to spend that money, rather than do something else with that $500,000. Now, if that doesn't come off, that won't actually change the prospectivity to my mind, because if we can only drill a small portion of it, we've got some really good targets emerging from the work. And it's like, okay, maybe there's a big player that wants to come in. And, Broken Hill is one of the projects we've had a knock on the door for. And, we've had discussions, and, whether it goes anywhere or not, it remains to be seen. But of course, if someone comes along and says, here's, $15 million to earn, X percent, and it's like, right, okay, well, let's, we've got a great joint venture partner, and let's do something.
So what do you say to people, looking in at this story, and we've seen a few comments go, you're a nice guy, you're a smart guy, but you're fumbling around on some sort of science project here, and you don't know how to create value for shareholders. What would you say to that?
Well, we're no different to any other junior explorer that's actually trying to explore. The antithesis of us is Bill Beaumont. He's the deal maker, and Jake Stein. They've gone out and they've started small, and they've built, and they've gone on to great discoveries. To build great companies on the back of their deal making skills. I'll be the first to admit I don't have those skills, and so all credit to them, right. But I mean, Chalice. Well, let's take De Grey. De Grey mining. And I mean, they're a 16, 17-year overnight sensation. By finding the Pilbara. So same thing. They were up there. They were journeymen, doing their thing, spending money in the ground, and that's what people want them to do. They give us money because we tell them these stories. We're going to go out and drill. We're going to drill them. They don't come in, and people should recognise the risk. So De Grey is one. The other one is Chalice. Chalice mining. I mean, Tim Goyder, what a great job he's done. But again, that's been a very, very long haul, and then it's just build and build and build. Ended up with the right brand in the right places. A couple of good deals along the way, and. It's
great comparing yourself to all those successes, right? We can all do that. We'll point to them. I could do that, but about what I do. But you've got to deliver. You talked about we're running up to a moment at the end of this year. I mean, what is this thing that we're running up to at the end of this year, which is going to change your fortunes? That's going to change people's perception of the work that you've been doing and laying out, over the past few years. What's going to make a difference, a real difference?
Yeah. Well, it's please excuse me, but I mean, it's like that. That's there's a question that we've kind of already asked. The only thing that's going to make a difference is a discovery. I mean, I can't say it anymore. I can't say it any more times, to people. It's like, that's what we're here for. We're here to make the discovery. And so, as I say, look at the other companies. OzQuest is another great example. It's like, man, they've got some great people, and we're just drilling targets, everywhere. And some people get lucky, and some people don't. And what the difference is, who knows? So so that's what's going to make the difference. But I can't promise it's going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, okay, and then we're sitting here again in 6 months. So what happened? Well, we failed at the discovery. So, and look, I don't know. Maybe at some point you sit down and say, well, is there something fundamentally wrong, with the ground holding that we've got, or the way that we're generating those targets, or whatever. And I'm constantly, I go to a lot of conferences and sort of present what we're doing. But one of the reasons I go to them is that there are lots of people like us out there who are providing insights into what they're doing. And part of my job is to make sure that, I'm across as much of the things, and we're only a small group, as I've said before. We've got to try and stay on top of the technical things and make sure that we're not missing some, the secret ingredient that leads to world-class deposits. And so that's what we do.
Okay, so I do try and say this to people a lot. Mining's a tough gig. Chance of success is extremely low, but if it works, it works. Companies coming talking to me about anomalies and targets. They don't mean anything. You've got to make that discovery. So what are you going to be focused on? Just want to be really clear with people watching this. What are you going to be focused on that's going to increase your chance or likelihood of making a discovery between now and the end of the year?
Yeah. So we got the drill program I'm doing here, which is a straightforward, here we go, bam, we're in. Okay. I've managed to secure a rig, which is a rabbit out of a hat. Let me tell you, in WA right now. And that's another thing. It's like, well, if we don't get a rig, again, the money's just going out of the door. Now, you don't drill a shitty target just because you need to be drilling. We'd never do that. But it's like, okay, got the rig, got the target. Okay, we're going to go and hit that. It's easy for us. COVID, one of the issues right now, of course, in New South Wales, promising to be drilling a Broken Hill, is that the lockdown is on. Okay, so I can only promise within that time frame. Rigs are easy to get there. We've got a great guy. We know we've got some targets, a bit of work going on. We've got some targets there, down dip, a long trend from the things we've already discovered. And we're the first people ever to put the story of PG, 40 years of exploration. We've put this great science project together, as you talked about, and we think we know where to go next, down plunge, but it's going to have to be drilling, okay, because geophysically they won't light up because it's the PGEs, and so it's going to be a geochemical thing, and we're going to be able to track that down. So those are the two things that we're trying to get to, by the end of the year. And when you run, no matter what portfolio, whether it's multi-commodities or whatever, you remember a lot of people often have these little triangles, little things, and they say, we're moving these prospects and projects up and to drilling and then resource, And that's what we've been doing. And so, not being able to access New South Wales, we've done a lot of soil sampling on our big wheat belt project here, and we'll have some pretty interesting news out of that, to come. But that's the sort of thing that I think we might be able to get a joint venture partner for when they see those sort of things.
Okay, so focus on those two things. No more pivoting. Get focused, spend your 800 grand, and then assess where you're at. So that'll take us through to the end of this year, will it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
As I say, the only crawl around that is actually being able to operate in New South Wales, because in regional New South Wales you can still. There's a little bit of driving around now, but that's closing down rapidly. We've got geophysics crews out there, and it's just like they're really struggling now to actually move and do work, and we've got contractors calling us because they're struggling to keep cash flow going. So it's there's a small crisis arising in the support in the service industry over in New South Wales at the moment.
No, yeah, there certainly is. So not just COVID, but being able to get the right people into country to be able to do that, and get the rigs, etc. No, I do appreciate the difficulties.
So in terms of pivoting, so can't get to broken or can't do any work. It's, again, yes, it's flagship, and we should be spending money there. But if we can't, well, again, every month you spend is just admin just going out the door. So I know we should be spending that money now. Let's get the WA projects and move those up to the next level to either get the joint venture partner or, God forbid, generate a really great drill target for the world-class deposit we came to, and then go and drill it. So that's the plan.
Mike, appreciate your time today. Thanks for the update. I mean, best of luck over the next few months up until Christmas. Come back on and let us know how you get on with that, and fingers crossed you get that discovery.
Thanks very much, Matt. It's always a pleasure talking to you.